And launching on November 2nd, we have Elementile, and this plays 2 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. And this is a really neat design that mixes a head-to-head combat card game with a spatial strategy element. Players are going to be advancing their cards through a 4x4 grid in order to try and reach the end where they can damage their opponent and try and reduce their opponent's health down to 0. On your way, you also run into your opponent's cards that are trying to make their way over to damage you. These cards out on the board can also do battle with each other, just like in any combat card game. But with the spatial element layered on top of this, it does add some interesting dynamics into the mix. And the game offers 2 different ways that you can start. Players can choose to either draft their starting decks or to construct their starting decks. And players will draw a hand of cards each turn, and players can choose to discard any number of their cards in order to trade those for elemental cards. And players will spend these element cards to summon new units into play, and if you already have units in play, then you can summon them into the same row as your existing units, or into the space behind an existing unit. If you don't have any units already in play, then you just summon in the starting row that's closest to you. There's 6 different types of elements in this game: wind, earth, water, fire, light, and darkness, and each has its own key themes that it's strong at. One might be great at healing and shielding, while another might focus on movement and attack buffs. And if there's element cards that you didn't use by the end of your turn, then they become wild cards and you can use them for any element activation in a future turn. Players can then activate their units one by one, moving a unit 1 space and attacking any units within range. The interesting thing about how the spatial element comes into play here is that certain units can only attack in certain directions relative to themselves, and they might do more damage in one direction than they would in another. So it'll really give you some interesting decisions to make as you're moving your units across the board. So a fun aspect of this combat card game is that defeating the other player's units does help you, but it's not the way to win the game. You actually need to get your units across to the other side of the board where you can inflict damage on your opponent player. So in a way, players are actually part of the game in this, and each player has 10 health, and if you're reduced to 0, then you lose the game. And there's 3 types of cards in the game. First, there's the units, which are the main cards that we've been talking about and get deployed out on the board. And then there's heroes, which are stronger versions of the units. And then there's the 3rd type of card that is the most different, and these are the spell cards. And these offer single-use abilities or ongoing effects that players can take advantage of throughout the game. Some really neat ideas here, and I really like the whole look of the game out on the table. If you do like combat card games, I definitely recommend checking this one out. It looks like it is offering quite a few new ideas and is delivering something very different from other games that you might have played. It's one that I'm definitely impressed by, and if it's done right, I think it shows a lot of potential.